Arthur de Vries, ASATA CEO, he's here today to talk about trade bodies and what the network's looking like after COVID. Okay, first off, how has COVID affected organizations like ASATA? Can you give us any indication of what the global agency network looks like?
Sure. Look, I think it's been extremely tough on associations. We are directly affiliated to our members and their success, or in this case, their challenges. When COVID struck, the first lockdown happened as we were sending out invoices for our new financial year, which started 1 April. And the net result was evident. I mean, everybody had to pre-prioritize, their cash flows and how that looked. And so it was very difficult for us to expect memberships to, the membership to pay their dues. We had fortunately built up a substantial reserve, which accommodated probably one of the busiest periods that the association has ever encountered in terms of work output. So, whilst the industry wasn't selling, we were working feverishly 24/7, directly and indirectly, in trying to address the many challenges that the pandemic brought us. So it certainly presented a lot of challenges. Fortunately, we built up these reserves, which carried us through to the end of 2020. But going forward, we needed to make sure that we were finding ways to not only top up the revenue needed for us to fulfill our mandate, but to also recognize that as part of the job, like if any other business, we needed to review our costs and to ascertain, what was affordable for members and what were the changes that we needed to make in order to accommodate those changes.
Okay, so what's the fallout been in South Africa? What does the actual retail landscape look like? What's left in terms of consortium, ITC?
Yeah, look, I think we've been extremely lucky. The consortiums are all still here. The brands are still there. We did a bit of research a couple of months back, and I think it was probably at the peak of the impact that COVID had around the ability to maintain and retain employment and staff. Just some of the data that came out of that study indicated that the businesses had retrenched about 55% of their staff. At least 41% had been impacted by reduced hours. There were 31% that were put on unpaid leave. And, some of them, as much as 78%, in fact, took salary cuts. Now, obviously, if you stack up those numbers, that means that same people were affected through different phases as businesses needed to address this differently. Ultimately, if we think about the percentage of the workforce that was affected, 33% of all staff have been retrenched, 63% took reduced hours, 35% took unpaid leave, and up to 72% took salary cuts. So the impact on the industry has been dramatic, and the fallout has been exceptional. It's safe to say that most of the businesses have been operating on average between 10 and 20% of their pre-COVID turnovers.
So what is the structure then for ASATA going forward from an operational standpoint?
Sure. Well, look, I think, as indicated earlier on, we are a direct reflection of the outputs of our members. And I'm extremely proud of my team and the work that we did. Certainly when we were going through the initial crisis management phase, which was the first sort of 4 or 5 months. After that, the work shifted quite dramatically, but with it also it was an acknowledgement that, we needed to restructure the association. So as part of that process, we closed our office. We are now working remotely. I've unfortunately had to retrench 2 of my staff. We were only 4 to start with. So we're down to 2. Both of us have also taken salary cuts to further support the process, which is no different to many of our members and the challenges and steps that they've had to take in order to ensure their consistency. But here we are in our 65th year. We have a clear and redefined strategy that will work within the framework of our constraints. And we remain committed to delivering value and outputs to our members.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about sustainability then, because I understand that the business has been restructured. But what are some of the key elements of your new plan that you think is going to guarantee ASATA, which performs an extremely vital function, what's going to make it sustainable?
No, thank you for that. Look, I think in summary, the strategy called on us to identify the key pain points and to continue to advocate and lobby actively to address those pain points. We obviously needed to stabilize ASATA's finances whilst ensuring that our benefits and value proposition still meets the members' needs and addresses these key pain areas. Further than that, we need to look beyond COVID-19 around industry recovery. And finally, I think as we work our way through this, we need to think about how we can continue to ensure that we retain and rebuild our membership. For me, those are the 4 key areas where we are putting in our efforts at the moment.
What's the plan to get more suppliers on board?
Sure. Look, I think, it's tough on them. And for them, when they do assessments around where there is a value proposition that is critical to their businesses, the one message that I have is to remember that we're all in this together. And the collaboration and the cooperation going forward as we attempt to rebuild the industry is about making sure that there is fair and equitable support in terms of the work that associations are doing to rebuild and consolidate and collaborate and ensure that there is a collective strategy around what that recovery looks like. Associations, and without them, it's going to be incredibly difficult to have any sort of meaningful, structured plan on behalf of the sector. And so it's for us critical that the entire value chain sees the work that we do and also recognizes the value of our members as part of their critical distribution and rebuild of their businesses. So, we're looking for partners to think carefully about where and how they make commitments as we think about recovery. And, we've offered all of our members a 50% discount, including partners. So it's not a lot of money that we're asking for. And hopefully, they will recognize that work and effort and they will support us accordingly.
Okay. One of the bigger issues for the trade is the issue of red lists. Are you part of the campaign that involves SATSA to get South Africa off the UK's red list, as an example?
Look, we support it. We think it's a great initiative. But the work that we are doing, I think, particularly if we look at the work that we're doing through the Tourism Business Council, of which we are board members, is to address the red list issue in a more holistic and global manner. It goes beyond just the UK. Yes, it's a critical source market for tourism, and yes, it's critical that we get those borders open. But I think what we need and what we are executing through the TBCSA is going to be a slightly broader strategy. But I think all the efforts matter. Because parallel to that, through our membership and board participation on the World Travel Agents Association Alliance, we are also very actively working with the Travel Again project, which unites global travel industry to restore not only consumer and corporate confidence in traveling, but also to encourage responsible government policy. Because as you can well imagine, one of our biggest challenges really is the inconsistent approach that governments have been taking. It's completely uncoordinated, and this has to be addressed.
Definitely keep our eye on that. Thank you, Otto.
Thanks, Sarah. That's been great.